Hello PPL fans, Luxanse here, bringing you week 2 of the power rankings for the Pokemon Premier League. Now, before we get started, there's a few things I'd like to mention. Firstly, my co-host Luster is unfortunately recovering from being sick, so please show him some love in the comments down below, as he did help make our rankings this week. And secondly, I'd like to explain the way power rankings will be done for the PPL this season. So during weeks 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7, you will have the power rankings of one analyst pair. Last week that was Bruno and Squid. This week you have Luster and I, with Luster unfortunately not being able to make it. Weeks 4 and week 8 will have all three pairs come together again to make a group ranking. Now, this does mean that from a week-to-week basis, the power rankings can be vastly different, as Bruno and Squid might have different things that they look at more closely than Luster and I. For example, they might look more into the prep of a game, while we might look more into the play of a game, for example. So there is a drastic difference that can occur between those weekly power rankings, but they are based on our own lists, not on the list of the last week, so to say. Let us know if you like this format, by the way. It's kind of an experimental format with this big group of power rankers, so please do let us know what you think of it. But as I said, this will be Luster and I's perspective on the games, and it will be different than the other perspectives, potentially. So, with that being said, let's start us off at the number 14 slot, where we ranked Ellie. Now, Ellie, I think, has a fairly solid draft, and I think her play week 1 was pretty alright. She did kind of get teched out and styled on by the Mirror Herb Lilligant, but that happens. Sometimes people just find that one cool tech to be able to outplay you. However, in this week, I unfortunately put her last, as I was not too enthralled by her play personally, and Luster did agree with that. And now, some examples of this in her game versus Addison, who, by the way, is currently, I think, the top coach in the league, if not the number 2, one of the 2-0 coaches that we have. So it is a very tough game to have to play, obviously. But I feel like there were opportunities to leave a mark in this game which were not taken. So, for example, there was a sequence of turns where Tauros came in, got up a sub, Torn broke the sub, Ellie went into Revavroom to take on the Tauros, and the Revavroom essentially immediately died due to a close combat. She went into Torn and clicked Hurricane. Now, I don't agree with that Hurricane play for 2 reasons. The main reason being, you can click Hurricane there, but that is a very safe and telegraphed play. You're already on the back foot. If you're just going to keep reacting to what's happening, you will not gain offensive momentum in your favor, or any momentum in your favor for that matter, as you just try and react to the onslaught of attacks that are happening to you. Now, what I would have liked to see there is potentially clicking U-turn to come in on, honestly, I don't remember what Addison even sent in, but I think it would have been better than clicking Hurricane, as the Hurricane I do remember not doing much. Yes, the Tauros is a -1 defense. Yes, killing this Tauros is important for you. However, if the Tauros switches out, which is very likely, preserving the Tauros essentially cost Addison nothing at that point. You don't really gain anything. By U-turning, you do gain that momentum back, and you can maybe make some plays yourself to make sure that you're not just sitting there and not doing anything, really. It felt more so like Ellie was just sitting there reacting rather than proactively trying to win the game, which can be a viable strategy, but I don't think it's a viable strategy with a team like Ellie's where she has a Torn, a Rotom, a Lando, Hydra, Hoopa, all these great offensive pieces where you can use them as bulkier pieces as well, but I don't think that just solely using them for that defensive purpose is going to win you the game in this type of scenario. Now, something else that I mentioned, because I mentioned there were 2 reasons why I don't like that play, is the other thing being, I don't think Reverie should have been in to begin with versus the Tauros. If you look at Addison's team, she has a Gardevoir which she went into on the Hurricane to trace that Regenerator and nullify anything that Ellie wanted to do there, but she has that Gardevoir. Now, without the Reverie, you don't really have a Fairy Resist, which is not great, I gotta say. If you then sack the Reverie, which, yeah, the Reverie is a normal resist, but so is the Diancie, for example. And if you're scared of the Tauros, like clicking Iron Head or something on Diancie, it is safer to pivot through Diancie onto Body Slam and then go Torn on an Iron Head or a CC or an Earthquake or something like that to, again, gain you that momentum and gain you some productivity. Because at that point, then you can make that Hurricane play to scout out what she's going to do. Then you can feel out the game a little bit. But as I said, if you're just reacting to what's happening, you will not be able to get your own foot in the door to try and win the game. Now, after Ellie at number 13, I have Nexus. So, Nexus made some questionable plays at the beginning of the game, in my opinion. Like, getting rocks up with Lyca Rock, good, I like that. Going Misdreavus on the Donphan and getting knocked, that's fine. Misdreavus is your spin blocker. It shouldn't really matter what this Donphan does as long as you can prevent the spin. And then you Terra and Calm Mind and don't do anything to kill the Donphan or to pressure it meaningfully, thus taking away from that spin blocking and essentially making your turn 1 useless. Because all that happened was he went Donphan, you set rocks, and now the rocks are gone and he still has the Donphan. Right? What I would have liked to see more is maybe like a Willow Misdreavus, so you can Willow the Donphan, something like that. I think that would have been better, but it is what it is in that sense. What I do think is a bigger misplay is after the Donphan does switch out on the Misdreavus after removing rocks, Sylveon comes in, and the Misdreavus is at +1, he sees it doesn't do much damage and switches out. But what I think would have been a much better play is setting up another Calm Mind with Misdreavus. So what could have happened there is there's a few things that can happen with the Sylveon. Either A, he clicks Hyper Voice, at which point you're setting up Spit F boosts. You'll be fine against Hyper Voice. You can click Draining Kiss a few times in between setting up to make sure you get your health back, to make sure he can't just go for low kicks, for example, and just click First Impression, you're gone. Or he starts setting up Calm Minds, at which point, if you keep setting up Calm Minds, you force him to set up Calm Minds too. You can go Overquill on one of those turns, and then force him out with Gunk Shot. At least at that point, you have scouted the Sylveon set rather than just switching out immediately and not really gaining any progress out of it. Because all that happened in the end was Cryogonal came in on Hyper Voice, didn't do much, and then Light Screen got up, and then Low Kicks came in, and then Mephisto just got free turns essentially, which isn't great, but overall that still could have been salvageable, I think, if the right mons were prioritized. Now, something that I really didn't understand is why would you sack Lyca Rock to the Low Kicks? So, yeah, Low Kicks is a scary mon, But after preserving this Misdreavus for, to me, not much of a reason, then sacking the Lycanroc, which is a good way to revenge the Chiyu, good way to revenge the Bundle, good way to revenge the Lokix, which was very annoying for this team, all with a Cellrock, obviously, is much, much, much better than just sacking it. Donphan was relatively low. You can easily sack Misdreavus, go Lycanroc, and then immediately double out, or just go for a Cellrock into the Donphan, and then get progress out of that, rather than sacking Lycanroc, then sacking Misdreavus, and then going Thunderous and just clicking Thunderbolt on, or clicking Rain Dance to enable the Overquill, which I do think he played the Overquill pretty well, at least, being able to damage or get the Lokix down and get the Donphan out of there. I think that was fine, but overall this could have been much, much better even with the team that Nexus brought, and it's unfortunate to see that it did not. So at number 12 we have Drewby. Now, there's not much to say about this game, as the game essentially boiled down to the Dunsparce and Klefki were sent out, they traded hazards, the Dunsparce, what's it called? The Dunsparce forced in Mousehold. Mousehold got parried alongside Klefki through Glares, and then after the Dunsparce got sacked, Quaquaval came in and clicked buttons until it died. So there's a few plays where I don't really understand what was going on personally. For example, if Drew was Scarf Cinderace, he probably should have gone that a lot earlier than he did. Just getting a high jump kick off after chipping down the Quaquaval, or even sacking the Haxorus, forcing a -1 defense drop, and then going Cinderace to click high jump kick, click gunk shot, anything like that would have been much better in my opinion. Now, that is what it is, but I think that would have been much better. The other thing that I don't really agree with is over predicting the Quaquaval versus Clodsire interaction. You don't really know what Envy is going to do with this Quaquaval versus the Clodsire. He clearly did take it into account in prep, but going into Mousehold is, in my opinion, probably the worst option. For example, if you're worried about him clicking either Water Move, predicting Unaware, which I'm pretty sure it was Water Absorb Clodsire, or if you're worried about him switching out to, say, Ursaluna on the Clodsire for free and then doing shenanigans with that, then I think a better play than just going Mousehold and giving him a free Moxie boost is going Walking Wake. Now, Aqua Step won't do any damage to Walking Wake, Ice Spinner won't do that much damage either, and if he clicks, and there's no way he's clicking CC on a Clodsire, so I think that would have been a much better play and would have given Drew a lot of momentum going into the game, as Envy did not have much for the Walking Wake. Like, even if he does stay in with this Quaquaval, if Drew just like Hurricanes or clicks Draco, that's a huge chunk out of Quaquaval's health gone. He doesn't know that it isn't Roost, obviously, but even then, forcing that damage, forcing the Roost, and getting in a Pokemon that is more suited to deal with it is a lot better than giving the Quaquaval the free boost and then realizing, wait, my Clodsire can't actually deal with this mon. since it has Ice Spinner. Now that it is at +1. So I think not necessarily thinking more about the plays, but thinking a little longer about, hey, what happens if I make this play, or what happens if I make this other play, would have been very beneficial. Or maybe feeling out the Quaquaval set a little before getting the Clodsire out of there would have been beneficial. Now, at the number 11 spot, I do have the commissioner of the league, Jack, aka Gravy, who, in a relatively close game with Kelly, lost as well. However, I think that there was a lot, not necessarily a lot of things, but a few things that definitely could have been better, like the turn 1 sequence, for example. Going for Terra Blast immediately with green is fine. However, what I think is a better play, after seeing Mesprit lead, is going for the Swords Dance. Now, Mesprit lead, to me, would likely mean either Rocks or U-turn are the click here. Because if the Mesprit is Trick, and it's like Trick Specs or Trick Scarf, right? Then I don't think that you would want to trick the Greedent into either choice item, because even if Jack didn't have a normal move, Kelly doesn't know that at turn 1, obviously. So looking at Kelly's team, his only normal resist was the Iron Treads. So if he tricks Jack into, say, Body Slam, for example, and he Terra Normals or something, that is very, very bad for Kelly, as he will just continuously take these normal types attacks and just lower his own Mon's HP gradually without having good pivots to this Greedent. So, well, if he's Terra Ghost, yeah, he'll take a Terra Blast, but he can take one of those and he'll still get his Rocks up, he'll still get his U-turn off. And if he U-turns, he won't take the Terra Ghost Terra Blast anyway. So I think that was a slight misplay that could have swung a lot of momentum into Jack's favor by clicking the Terra, clicking SD turn 1, and then maybe going for some predictions like Wall Charge, in my opinion, is a very good play on that turn 2 in theory, because you'd be at +2. You'd be Terra Ghost, which the Mesprit likely wouldn't want to stay in on, as it sees as the option for Terra Blast is there, obviously, which I think is like, or rather, I think the Terra Blast is very telegraphed there. So going for, say, Wild Charge onto the Staraptor coming in on a Terra Blast, or the Vaporeon, which Kelly ended up answering the Greedent with in the actual game, would have been a lot better overall. And on top of this, late game, Jack, in my opinion, played too safe, resulting in no opportunity to get back into the game, mainly clicking what's in front of him and not going for reads. Like, for example, there was a turn where Jack had the Tinglu out at like 20 HP versus the Sneasler. Kelly goes into his low health Staraptor on an Earthquake from Tinglu. If Jack had clicked Heavy Slam or something there, in my opinion, that would have been way better, because there's, in my opinion, two plays that Kelly can go for there. He either plays for positioning, or he plays to what's it called? Or he either plays for positioning or he kills the Tinglu, right? Because in theory, setting up like a Swords Dance, for example, is never in the books there. If Tinglu attacks you with Earthquake, you're just always dead. If it Whirlwinds you, you just wasted the turn. So you can either switch to get yourself better positioning, or you can kill the Tinglu. Now, Jack could have recognized this, in my opinion, and clicked like heavy slam on the Sir after coming in there, thus maybe resulting in him being more or having a better chance to pull back the game in his favor. Another play that I noticed that I think would have been a great read is clicking sword stance on the turn the Iron Treads came in with his Iron Hands. As we saw, the Iron Treads did not one-shot the Iron Hands, so getting that sword stance off and being able to drain punch for a lot of health back would have been very beneficial, because Star Raptor would have been gone in this like theoretical scenario. You would have gotten the Iron Threads removed and would just be Sneasler and Vaporeon versus the Iron Threads. At which point you can just drain punch the Vaporeon if it comes in, you get a lot of health back, and you probably win the interaction versus the Sneasler. Or if the Sneasler comes in, you can just click Thunder Punch. If he goes for U-turn, you'll be fine. And then you can at least remove the Vaporeon. If he then kills you, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I think if that scenario happens and Kelly doesn't choke, he still wins, but he wins by less differential, which would have been better for Jack. At the number 10 slot, we have Lars, where honestly, it felt like he lost the game of preview. I think based on both the drafts that were present, because he played aim, he should have brought hazards himself or tried to fit removal, as Joey or PokeAim's draft is very much so built around the Samurott and getting up hazards. Getting up those spikes early and using his offensive pieces to break and then clean up the team. I think Lars played pretty poorly, or rather prepped pretty poorly into that, as I think what would have been better is try to match those hazards, since aim can't remove them himself, or go the opposite route and try and remove them to enable his defense to sit on aim's offense way better. Now, what I also think would have been better is breaking early with the Roaring Moon, since there was no reliable recovery other than D-Knight and Cress, which neither wants to come in on Roaring Moon, which opens up Gorilla or Rillaboom and Grafia later, and makes it so that you have more of an opportunity to win rather than going Gorilla first, kind of having it fizzle out, going Roaring Moon, not being able to break efficiently, and then having to do a optimized sweep with Grafia. Now, the last point that I want to mention is that Dondo's health could have been prioritized by going Rilla or Flirters earlier on the Samurott, which also would have limited spikes by offensively pressuring the Samurott. Now, at the number 9 slot, we have Jay, who did get a little unlucky with the Hydro Pump versus the Jolteon, but for the most part, he just played pretty predictable. He kept clicking U-turn on Tusk every time with the Uxie, for example, which allows SK to be able to easily predict his moves, and because of that, slowly make progress towards a victory. Even if Jay Jay keeps making these plays, so SK doesn't need to do too much to make the progress to get to a winning position. Now, backs seem to be the win con in this game plan, but to me it didn't feel like there was too much to support and enable backs. Like, you had Articuno to break for it, and Volcarona to cripple things like Azu and Grey Tusk with like Willow, but overall it kind of just felt like backs was kind of there. It didn't really get opportunities to set up, it didn't really get to do much in this game, which is unfortunate. But what I did like was the Articuno set. I think the Articuno set was kind of cool, and it breaking the Golden Go was pretty big for backs, and that's why I did say that I did like the Articuno being there to enable the backs to sweep later. However, I think it could have been preserved over the Uxie potentially, to heal it up later on Tinkaton rather than sacking it to the Azumarill and essentially sacking one of the better breakers on, or well, both of the better breakers on this team with or disruptors with Articuno and Volk, so that it makes it harder for backs to set up and actually win the game later. Now, at the number 8 spot, we have Q, who, despite his loss, played fairly well, in my opinion, but I think some plays could have been more optimal to get better positioning early game, like the Lilligant versus Garchomp / Ursaring interaction. You could have clicked Petal Blizzard or CC rather than Ice Spinner after the Cleaver had clicked Stone Axe on the Garchomp. Now, you've shown that you're already willing to take a hit with the Lilligant, so I think it would have been better to get that Petal Blizzard off or get that CC off to not risk more like hustle miss turns rather than clicking Ice Spinner twice and just going for that. So I think he could have won if the Lily was played a bit better, like clicking Ice Spinner on Chomp when the Chomp was on 1. Again, click Petal Blizzard, click CC, you punish the Sizz for coming in with CC, for example, and then if the G Slowking comes in, yeah, he can go Titan with Chilly Reception, but then the Titan takes rocks damage, which I think is better for you overall than just letting him do whatever. Now, at the number 7 slot, I do have SK, who, despite his win, didn't really do anything of note. He played fine, obviously. He did get a little lucky with the Hydro Pump miss, which wouldn't have swayed the game in Jay's favor, but it would have made it a lot closer, since Azumarill, Zarude, and Tinkaton were still all healthy. He just kind of slowly made progress until Jay was out of threats, but there wasn't really much to mention in terms of insane reads that he went for or stuff like that, in my opinion. I think overall he played fine, but there wasn't much noteworthy to mention really. Now, at the number 6 slot, I do have Kelly under the radar, who brought a pretty cool tech with Toxic Orb, Switcheroo, Sneasler to catch his Spin Blocker and Greedent here, which enables his Iron Treads to rapid spin if Jack does decide to set up spikes with his Stinglu or his Mew, for example, which I think was pretty cool. And it does enable him to keep his own hazards up as well through the spikes from Toadscroll and the Stealth Rock from Mesprit that he went for turn 1. Now, other than that, he positioned his Staraptor quite well for Sneasler to clean later, which overall, solid game plan. Again, there's not too much to mention other than that trick Sneasler, which was really cool, or that Switcheroo Sneasler, which was very cool. He mostly just followed his game plan, went for the plays he needed to, worked out. And once again, we have someone who mostly just followed their game plan and it worked out. And at the number 5 slot, we have Envy. So Envy's prep was pretty good, bringing a relatively bulky Quaquaval with 4 attacks, thus allowing him to beat the Clodsire with Water Absorb 1v1. Through Ice Spinner after getting the Moxie boost, his game plan was fine. He got up rocks, he crippled some threats in Klefki and Mousehold. Overall, he didn't do anything too noteworthy. It's mainly, in my opinion, Drew picking suboptimal plays, which Envy just capitalized on very well. Like, as I mentioned, going Mousehold on the Quaquaval to sack it. I don't think that's a great play, you giving him a free Moxie boost, but Envy capitalized well on that and took his opportunity with the Quaquaval to sweep most of Drew's team, and then obviously he ended up winning pretty dominantly. Now, at the number 4 slot, we have Mountaineer, who after a relatively rough start in his game versus Q, with having to sack Ursaluna due to not wanting to predict the moves that the Hisuian Lilligant was going for, He stabilized pretty well after that, in my opinion. So I think you could have maybe played a little bit more aggressive and go like Scizor on predicted Ice Spinner, stuff like that, rather than sacking health on the Earth Ring, but overall, it worked out fine. Removing rocks enables the Titan after seeing Q continuously click this Ice Spinner was very good in my opinion, and he punished Q really hard for staying in with Ice Spinner on the Scizor by clicking that defog, giving him a lot of leeway to just click U-turn, go into the Slowking, click Chilly Reception, get into the Titan, which he did, which was a very solid sequence overall. And removing those rocks really enabled the Titan to come in later and be able to break open Q's team. Very good play from him there. And overall, he responded well to Q's threats after scouting a little bit early on and pulled out a clutch victory. At the number 3 slot this week, we have PokeAim MD, also known as Joey, who positioned very well in the early game in my opinion, getting in Samurott safely, feeling out the answers to his opponent's answers to his Mons, not letting Rilla get too out of hand with the sub-leech seed set, and sufficiently handling the bigger threats as well, preserving enough health with Crook after neutralizing Roaring Moon to make sure it would still be able to neutralize Scorpii, and then making sure that they would be in range of D-Knight while giving D-Knight free opportunities to come in and clean up the game. He didn't really give Lars a moment to breathe, which I think was very well played by him. The only reason he's at 3, honestly, for this week, if this was like just a week 2 ranking, only week 2 battles, I think he would have been at 1. He impressed me the most with his play this week, but for the overall rankings, he can only go up to 3rd in my opinion. Now at the number 2 slot, we have Mephisto, who made some good reads overall on Nexus's relatively telegraphed plays, like going into the Mischievous and knocking off was a very good play, even if it was a little telegraphed. But in my opinion, I can't give too much credit due to a lot also just being Nexus not playing well and giving out Mons like it's Christmas Eve. Giving the Lycanroc for free was very good for Mephisto, but if he didn't, Mephisto could have been in a much tougher spot later on with Chew, Bundle, and low kicks. So, while Mephisto did play very well in my opinion, I think he did also get helped by the fact that Nexus just didn't play that well. And I'm hoping to see Mephisto make, or well, not even make some more interesting plays week 3, but I'm hoping to see more of his incredible play in week 3 rather than putting him up because his opponent didn't do that well, in my opinion. Now at the number 1 slot, we have Addison, who in my opinion played very well and is also 2-0, so she is at the top. Now, first of all, I think she had very good target priority with her game plan, using Tauros to break the normal resist, which doubled as resists for other important offensive pieces, like for example the Diancie. Even if Ellie had gone into Diancie, Tauros can break that a little bit by going for Body Slam, going for Iron Head, enabling Dragapult to potentially click Dragon Dart or Draco Meteor or something like that, or to enable King Gambit to spam dark moves more freely without there being like more pivots to it, because there is obviously the Hariyama, but it takes away one of the answers to that. Or something as well, that is the only flying resist on Ellie's team. She can just click Bravebird with the G Zapdos over and over if she really wanted to after the Diancie goes down. Now, what happened in the game obviously is the River Room went down, and as Addison does, she capitalized on that perfectly, and I think this game is a very good example of a mentality that players should have. If you are winning, win harder. Do not give your opponent a moment to breathe. Keep the pressure on. Now, what I mean by that is if you get into a good position, force that good position even harder. Don't sit there and go, I'm in a good position now, I can just cruise on through. Because that is what gives your opponent opportunity to get back into the game. I think Addison played very well in that sense, and that is why she is the number 1 on our week 2 rankings. Now, that is the rankings for this week. I hope that they were to your satisfaction, and we will see you again next week. Peace out.